My name is Eugene, that don't know me. I'm the executive director of a profit called the Southern Waste Information Exchange. We're a small clearinghouse for industry and municipalities on waste issues. We're kind of like a matchmaker. We put waste generators in touch with waste users, as well as put on conferences like this. If you allow me, I'm going to go ahead and open up with a couple of comments. First off, everybody that has a cell phone, if you will, put it on vibrate. Restrooms are to the right of the registration desk if you haven't found them already. Conference support staff, if you all run into any problems, please let us know about it. Proceedings, everything that you see here today that's going to be presented, all the presentations will be shot to a PDF format, and then we'll make those available. We're also Zooming all the sessions, thanks to our folks, the AV guys, David and Ralph. And we'll make those available post-event. For our sponsors, exhibitors, VIP registrants, you're going to get a list with everybody that's here with full contact information. For our attendees, if you don't want your contact information released, please let me know so I can extract that. All other registrants are going to receive a list of names and affiliations. Or in the moderator speaker compendium that I sent out to everybody. So I'm asking all the moderators not to read bios at this point to try to conserve some time. So if you need to, if you don't have that moderator speaker compendium, it's actually on the website. You can download that. Social media pages, the advantages and one of the values of coming to conferences like this is the networking. So I encourage you to join our LinkedIn page and our Facebook group page. Networking opportunities, all the breaks are going to be in the exhibit hall. We've got a reception tonight. We had a reception last night. It was sponsored by Sunoco. The continental breakfast and the breaks itself will be in the exhibit hall. Golf tournament tomorrow. We have sold out the golf tournament. If anybody has an interest, I've got a wait list going, and I think I can get a couple other folks in because I've got some folks that got stuck with weather and probably aren't going to make it to the golf tournament. And then lastly, I always like to do this is provide the scam notice, right? And I'm sure many of you in this room have gotten emails in the past about getting the list of attendees. We don't sell the list of attendees. I don't have 6,000 people at the conference. If you've gotten those emails, one of the key things that you'll notice is the way that they list the dates. They'll put the date first and then the month. That's a clear giveaway that it's not from the US. So allow me to make a couple other intros. I've got to recognize our sponsors because if it weren't for the sponsors, the conference wouldn't be available. So our diamond sponsors, our platinum sponsors, gold sponsors, last night's reception sponsor, our silver sponsors. You can see we've got a host of industry support. And like I said, this conference wouldn't be available. In fact, I don't think any conference would be available if it weren't for the sponsors. Supporting organizations, the folks that put the conference on, and then let me make the announcement. So every year we try to pick a charity that we help raise funds for. This year, it's an organization called Reforge Recycle. It is a group that provides assistance to veterans, and they have a specific division that is set up for the recycling industry. So we're going to be raising funds. We're going to do our 50-50 raffle and the option to get this bottle of Pappy. So the way it's going to work is, I think it is, one ticket is $5 or 5 for 20. We're going to do a drawing at 6 o'clock tonight in the reception. The winner gets the decision to take half the cash or the bottle of Pappy, right? If they take the cash, we're going to auction off the bottle of Pappy. We also have what we call the recycling bin of benefits. I think last year we had about $1,000 worth of gift cards, and we'll draw for those at the very end. I'll probably split that up so that we have maybe 2 or 3 different drawings for the gift cards. And with that, last thing, I got to do a little self-promotion here. SERC next year is going to be back here on the February 15th through the 18th. I've got a food recovery forum that we're doing for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection on April 7th. We're doing the PFAS forum. We've got a session right after this all on PFAS. And for those of you not in the room that haven't heard about this, I really encourage you to stick around and listen to that session. I've got the Waste Conversion Technology Conference again this year. We're doing that in conjunction with Agricultural Plastics Recycling Conference. So those two events will be run back to back in San Diego in August, which is why I chose San Diego, because I don't want to be in Florida in August. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to our moderator. Karen Wilson is Manager of Specialty Development for Greif Recycling. And so with that, I'm turning it right over to you, ma'am, to introduce our speakers.
Good morning. How is everybody doing this morning? Good, good. Good Monday morning. Glad to be here. So this morning is back by popular demand. So most everyone speaking here this morning was here last year for the opening session, and it was such a big hit that they're all back, with the exception of Marty. Marty's new, but you will enjoy Marty. He's a big character, and glad to have him here too. So I'm not going to read the bios, just like Gene said. You guys can read those in your own time. We have about 2 hours here this morning, so we're going to do 30 minutes per speaker, and we're going to start with Michael Hoffman. Michael is the president and CEO of the National Waste and Recycling Association. Michael could not be here in person, but he is going to join us on video through Zoom.
Okay. Hopefully I'm on.
How you doing? It's all yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And thank you all for the opportunity to share my insights. I'm sorry I can't be there with you. Gene and the team always do a very good show, and I wished I could be there, but my calendar is packed. So my agenda this morning is to go through 4 items: the current modernization of recycling, the state of solid waste, give you an economic overview, and then I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about what the NWRA's mission and outlook is. I'm going to ask the IT guys, is the screen sharing? Because I've put the share up.
Yes, you have your screen shared. Your video, I think, is off, so we can't see you.
My video is on. Is that better?
There you go. We see you.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, so state of recycling, modernization of recycling. I started this position in June of 2024 and was startled by something that I learned. Over 50% of the population, even if it rolls its recycling bin down to the curb, does not believe we're recycling. That staggered me. So we clearly have a mission here within the NWRA to change our narrative and revisit this. One of the things that is paramount for us to be able to share with the public is this meaningful recapitalization and modernization of the recycling infrastructure. We're nearly 50% done. We're going to spend about $70 billion. This modernization has been driven by the changing or transformation away from a commodity-based model, process fee, and we've even seen contamination moving in the right direction. When you think about what drove some of this, the composition of the waste stream has changed dramatically in the last 25 years. Even in the last 5 years, the waste stream doesn't look the same as it did today versus 5 years ago. What you've seen the industry do following National Sword in the last major reduction in commodity values, sharp reduction, is they clearly said we have to get out of the commodity business and revisited the whole model around manufacturing. And you took at the peak 800 facilities in the 90s, are now down in the low 500s, and you're seeing 3 stages of modernization: outright tear down, modernize, adding optics, and fresh start. Places like Berlin, Connecticut, the USA facility, Columbus, Ohio, Rumpke, San Antonio, Balcony, San Francisco, you have Recology, and all of the major public players have added brand new capacity in the last 2 to 3 years. It's estimated they're going to spend about $7 billion, whether it's private company or publicly traded private sector. This is being funded predominantly by the private sector. You're driving your utilization from 20, 25 tons per hour into the 45 to 65 range. Think about spending about $1 million of capital per ton per hour to drive this improving utilization. And the business model has now been converted to somewhere between 60, 80%, depending on the company. It's a little over 70 on average, to a process fee away from a commodity-based model. Here's something that is important for us to say and get a message out. EPR, extended producer responsibility. If it's hard to handle materials, we're absolutely behind it. Think batteries. We have to get batteries out of the curbside waste and recycling stream. We have a fire every day somewhere in this infrastructure, whether it's on collection, transfer stations, MRFs, or landfills, every day. Well, the question we ask about packaging EPR and why we don't believe it's the answer is we ask the question, what is your objective? If the answer is circular economy, then EPR does not help you get there. If it's transferring who pays for this directly, absolutely, that's what happens. What we would share to the packaging industry, and those of you who are sitting in the audience, is that your cost of this recycling program is going to go up 2 to 3 times what it currently is being done, and it is actually working. Where's the evidence of that? Look at Ontario, Canada. Pre-EPR, there were 53 MRFs, and the province was paying about $500 million in cost to be able to manage that program. They go into packaging EPR, the 53 MRFs get consolidated to 10. The companies who win that have to put up about $600 million in capital to recapitalize that. But the dollar amount for the exact same work goes to 1.5 billion. You do not meaningfully change the rate of recycling if there is an existing recycling program in place. It's a false narrative that the recovery rate improves materially. It will improve some, but not materially. And more importantly, this is regressive to the least who can afford it, because there's no question it comes back through inflation. We would suggest to the industry, you also have to be very, very careful on the packaging side, that if you embrace a program that would allow the separation of curbside collection of waste versus curbside collection of recycling, that will end up in a disaster. The truck's $400,000, the containers are $75 a piece. To get a proper utilization of that truck, you need to pick up 1,000 homes a day. So you have $1 million worth of capital picked up, and you are not weighting out that truck, you are maybe packing it out. So on a per ton basis, and it's an extraordinary cost to be able to do what is done more efficiently inside the existing service industry where they provide both services. So we suggest that you rethink that entirely. If your objective is circular, it's content commitments. And there is clear evidence, and this is one of the occasions when you can point to Europe and see where this is working. They have in the European Union content commitments, and it is absolutely driving a higher rate of recycled content at more stable pricing in the secondary markets for that content. Packaging EPR did not get them where they wanted to be from a standpoint of circular. All it did was transfer the payment of who was going to pay for it. Okay, state of solid waste. Good news, good volumes. MSW at the landfill, service intervals in your small container business remain positive. Price cost spread, meaning can you cover your cost of inflation and result in operating leverage? Absolutely. Where do we think price falls in 25? Probably somewhere between 4 to 6%. Why? Because inflation is going to run at 3 to 4. That it basically equates to what your wage inflation looks like. One of the issues that still exists, but it's better, is we have a shortage of drivers and technicians. We are now back down in a range of 3 to 5% open positions, down from 6 to 10 coming out of COVID. But it's still a very expensive proposition to replace an existing driver or technician. All in, you're looking at between lost opportunity costs and actual cash costs for recruiting about $25,000 per hire. What has that led to? You're bringing in-house training. It's becoming table stakes. If you're 50 drivers or bigger, you probably should be thinking about, certainly at 100, you should probably be thinking about introducing your own CDL program. I went through one of those programs. Casella Waste Services was kind enough to invite me to go through their school. I did it in December. I would tell you it was a terrific experience on many levels, not the least of which I learned a lot about the truck safety issues that I thought I understood, and now I'm much more knowledgeable. I now have my CDLB. Anybody who needs a driver on a swing shift, just raise your hand. More importantly, these companies are changing people's lives because they're usually identifying a helper on the back of a truck who has shown up to work every day as a hard worker, has been conscientious, and they're giving them that opportunity to step up into a full-time role as a driver. Well, that takes them $15, $18 an hour to $25 an hour with growth from there. It's an extraordinary effort by industry to fix its recruiting issue. It's working. And it is table stakes, but I would tell you, without comprehensive immigration reform, we're going to struggle here. What do you should think about on wage inflation in 24? It was 4 to 6%, 25, I think you're 3 to 4. In long term, I think it settles at 3 to 4. We're not going back to the 08-2020 cycle of 2.5%. Rail access is becoming table stakes. What do we mean by that? You are seeing a reduction in total airspace, about 1,550 landfills. We put about 55% of the waste into landfills. In the next decade, that number is going to be down somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200. It's mostly municipal sites are reaching end of life. So they tend to be smaller in daily tons per day. That volume will then concentrate back into the private sector. But you are seeing waste move farther and farther, and we are seeing tip fees move in a direction that's supporting this. If you can get a tip fee over $100 a ton in a local market, you open rail as a true option. If on the other end, you're dealing between $25 and $35 as your gate rate going into the landfill. We're already seeing volume move pretty healthy into Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Virginia, Alabama, and on the West Coast into Washington State. So let's talk about the state of the economy. GDP. I would tell you in 2025, the prognosticators don't know the answer. The range is 1.5 to 2.9 with a consensus of 1.9%. At 1.5 to 2.9, that spread is way too wide if they have confidence about how they think about the economy. We don't think there's a recession. However, that does mean we get tax reform. What's that mean? This is the 2017 tax bill that gave permanent corporate tax reduction down to 21.5%, but also did a personal tax reduction, but it's sunset at the end of this calendar year. If you do not extend, either make permanent or extend for an extended period of time, at least 5 years, maybe 10, the personal tax cuts, that's a $4 trillion impact to the consumer in 2026. That will tip us into a recession. On CPI, you are going to settle at a higher low. More importantly, why the Fed is chasing 2% baffles me. From the period of 1957 to 2007, we averaged over 4%. We settled in, and in that period, it was 4.5, but in the first 40 years, and about 3 in the last 20 years. So we've lived in a 3 to 4% range. We had a window here from 2008 to 2020 where we were less than 2.5%. For some reason, we're focused on this most recent window when the reality is our economy can easily support 3 to 4%. And therefore, I think you'll see that long-term inflation settles at a higher low. More importantly, there are aspects of this that are structural. That it doesn't really matter whether there's a blue government in the White House or a red government. I'm not sure that anybody is going to be able to meaningfully change some of the inflation that has happened in this economy in the last 4 years. And as a result, we're going to have to grow out of it. And that does mean you have to have tax reform and sound fiscal policy. Housing starts. I've talked about this before. We have a problem, folks. Equilibrium, meaning you have maintained the balance between supply and demand, is 1.5 million starts. We have averaged for the last 17 years about 1.35 million. We have a shortfall of somewhere between 4.5 and 5 million units. The builders, this is important, the builders cannot sustain a pace greater than 1,650,000 to 1,700,000. Pick the low end of that. That's 150,000 units over the average that gets equilibrium. That means it takes 30 years to get back into balance. I repeat that, 30 years, that's a generation. The issue is labor. They can run their existing labor force for extreme levels for short windows, but they cannot sustain a high pace to meaningfully cut into this shortfall. To get back to equilibrium, this is another reason why we need comprehensive immigration reform. Our immigration laws are 60 years old. They were written by a group of politicians that came out of the World War II era. They do not reflect a modern economy. More importantly, the United States is the only developed economy in the world where the three forms of capital, data, currency, and labor, cannot move freely in and out of our borders with highly regulated. Data and currency can, labor cannot. We need to fix this. This chart just shows you what housing cycles have looked like over the last 60 years. And to the far right, you can see the steep drop right before the Great Recession. If you take that deep blue horizontal line, that area under the curve where you're below that 1.5 million pace, that's your shortfall. The other issue that is not helping this is the cost of capital. So in the 1980s, my parents had a mortgage that was at 14%. And when you think about it, you go, oh my God, then why was everybody moaning and groaning about 7%? Because the underlying cost of the house, the price of the house itself, is compounded at a far greater rate in comparison. So 7-8% mortgages looks like what 14 did back then. We need the mortgage rate to come down. Here's the problem. We've cut the Fed funds rate 100 basis points and the mortgage rate is basically stuck somewhere around approximately 7%. The 10-year is at 4.47. It got as high as almost 5%. The spread in mortgages is actually against the 10-year. The 10-year needs to live somewhere between 3.75 and 4. And unfortunately, the 10-year is the reflection of the market's expectation of a weakening economy. And at the moment, the marketplace is uncertain about the current state of the consumer, and they're fearful of the consumer will lead us into a recession. Okay, quickly, my commercial. Who is the NWRA? We are the largest member base, meaning you join as a company, advocacy organization that represents all things waste. So that's solid waste, industrial, hazardous waste, healthcare, construction and demolition and debris. Our membership is on the services side. You touch the waste, the suppliers, you make the capital equipment or provide a recurring service that the services buy. And then we have a professional services category that picks up our engineering consulting, lawyers, accountants, financial services. We are first and foremost an advocacy organization. We are primarily focused at the state and local level, although I would tell you in the last 24 months, we saw more comprehensive rule changes at the federal level than I had in the last 38 years. I have a mandate from my board to get us out of the top 10. Sadly, we are one of the 10 most dangerous occupations in the United States. We were down to 7, and then recently the Bureau of Labor and Standards data said that we moved back up to 4. We're actually challenging their analysis because we discovered that they don't actually collect real data, they calculate it, and they admitted that there's a standard error of about 25%. So for all the engineers and statisticians in the room, you probably have the same reaction I did, which is all those PhDs at BLS should give back their degrees because a 25% standard error is not conscionable. And then lastly, engagement is talking about telling our story. And I think you may have heard me talk about this in the past, but this is an industry that has worked very quietly in the shadows, not for any other reason than partly we get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But we've worked quietly in the shadows. And when I discovered that greater than 50% of the population doesn't believe we're recycling, and yet we're doing this mass recapitalization, I realized that we need to talk about who we are as an industry. We need to explain what we're doing, talk about the engagement we have in the industry in our communities. Do you realize that on solid waste alone, we are in our streets and neighborhoods more repeatedly than anybody, more than EMS, fire, police. We are in our streets and neighborhoods more than anybody. We see more, we are observing more. I can tell you stories forever about the solid waste driver in the neighborhood who realizes that a family who normally, elderly family potentially, who normally always has their waste out. It's not out one day, the light's on, and they stop the truck, get out, go up, knock on the door to make sure they're okay. There's stories like that every day in the business. We have to tell those stories, but more importantly, we are in a critical, essential service. Can you imagine if we couldn't pick the waste up, what would happen? Can you imagine in the middle of the summer and not being able to get the waste for a couple of days? Can you imagine if you were forcing us into all electric vehicles and the power went out for 3 or 4 days, how we could get in and get the waste? These are part of us being able to tell our story. And then lastly, we are the ANSI standard setter for Z245. When I talk about issues, at the very top of the list is CERCLA PFAS. I hope in the next year we're successful in doing what I think we can, which is either get better regulation, meaning take this out of CERCLA and put it in to say RCRA, we're not opposed to regulation, or at least get intervenor legislation to exempt wastewater treatment, municipal wastewater treatment, solid waste, composting, the passive receivers. So I look forward to Gene's PFAS conference. I hope in a year when it happens that we're not talking about CERCLA PFAS, that we have fixed this problem. Other issues that I think that when you look at us from a advocacy standpoint, we've played a lot of defense. That's the far right-hand column. We're going on offense, in particular on battery bills. We need to figure out a fee-based battery recovery landfill bans where we get these batteries out of the curbside waste stream. And part of that is educating the public, but it is also engaging the battery manufacturing world. The portable, recoverable battery world is with us. We need to work on the embedded battery world. And then we're going to go and stay in front of the marketplace on things like bottle bills. They don't work. How do you know? Go look at the state budgets where they've collected the tax, meaning you paid when you bought your Coke or your water bottle, how much of that money they've given back. It's greater than 50% of the number of bottles sold is sitting there not claimed. Bottle bills don't work, and we want to help the regulators understand that's not how to drive improving behavior. We're back to content commitments. And with that, I'll open it back up to questions, Gene, if you'd like. Otherwise, I will let you get on with your show, and thank everybody for having me.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have any questions for Michael while we have him? We're going to do questions after each speaker. So anyone in the room will bring the mic to you. Okay, we have a question.
Excellent.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Michael. That was a great presentation. And you circled back, I think, 3 times to content commitment. Where can we push that? How can we make that the dialogue at the state level? My name is Gigi. I'm here with State of Texas Alliance for Recycling and also work with Synergy Waste Group. And we just had a board meeting on another bottle bill in Texas last week. This is a real issue, understanding, helping at that level, them understanding the difference of EPR versus content commitment.
So several things. One, we at NWRA will have the data. It's being pulled together by a third party, reviewed, and therefore we can show that it's truly independent and valid to show that if you, on bottle bills, we're measuring the sheets, which I've learned is a legal term for that pile of money that didn't get claimed. We'll have data in the 11 states where we're bottle bills showing that this, what percentage of that money is not being returned, therefore validating bottle bills don't work. 2, when everybody on the NGO side pushes bottle bills, they always point to Europe. And our response to that is, yes, we will acknowledge Europe's successful with bottle bills. The construct of their packaging is totally different. And we often get pushed back there, but we go, wait, they do not have lightweighting or very, very little lightweighting in plastic bottles. It's a small fraction in comparison to ours. 2, they have an embedded infrastructure of how the citizens can actually go into the marketplace and return the bottle. It's broadly penetrated. We don't have that. But here's the most important one. From a regulatory standpoint, their equivalent of an FDA has approved the reuse of thick-walled bottles on plastics and glass. Thick-walled bottles get reused in like-for-like beverage meaning it's washed out, put the drink back in, relabel it, and put it on the shelf 6 to 9 times. And glass packaging for beverage gets reused up to 40 times. Our packaging wouldn't allow that to happen. So there's the pieces we start pushing back. You can't compare this to Europe. It's just a totally different packaging stream. We have tons of data that we can empower you with to get in front of your legislators and show them why this isn't the solution, that content commitments at reasonable levels with reasonable progression to increased levels over time will lead to stable secondary market pricing and allows the backdrop for that consuming packaging world. It's a level playing field. It means that when they know they're going to have to pay more, because you will, anybody tells you that the rPET, RHDPE, recycled glass is going to be cheaper than virgin, that's just not true. If we're at $2.50 for nat gas prices in the United States, you cannot make rPET or HDPE cheaper than virgin. You got to be at $10 or higher in MMBTU to even get close to equilibrium. So virgin will always be cheaper. But if you create a level playing field where everybody has to enjoy that same incremental price increase in their packaging, then you create a demand side that creates stability around the price. Hope that helped.
Okay, Michael, we're right on time. So
Thank you very much,
for your
everybody. Enjoy the
time.
show.
Thank you. Safe travels wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, thank you guys for tuning into that. Next up, we have our next speaker, Chaz Miller. Chaz is the president of Miller Associates, and he is preparing, and he's been preparing. He's ready to speak to you guys. So, thank you.
Good morning. Hopefully my voice will last. Always a delight coming down here, and I really regret the fact that unfortunately I have to leave before 11 because of a hearing tomorrow in the state of Maryland on an EPR bill and some other bills. So if you got any questions for me, you got to get me before I leave. However, you will get a PDF of my slides with my speaker notes, because there's so much in the speaker notes that simply are not up on the slide. And I got to make you'll see some obvious typos in my slides. I got to fix those and one or two other things, but I'll get those to Gene by Wednesday. So I'm going to be talking about prices and markets and where they're going. All prices are as of January 31st of this year, and unless I say differently. Trends are more important than specific prices, because all pricing databases are averages conglomerated together. But it's worth noting that in January, pricing was remarkably good for recyclables. We saw a number of prices go up. We saw all the others remain stable. Very unusual for winter. Something I always like to say, now this is going to be, everybody in the room knows this. All the stuff in that recycling bin, it's just raw materials looking for a buyer. Nothing less, nothing more. Buyers want consistent quality, they want consistent quantity, and they want that at an acceptable price. It's funny though, I speak at some conferences where I have to reiterate that very, very basic point. Everybody in this room already knows that. So let's start off with some basic prices and see how they're going. OCC, and these are national numbers, around $73 per ton in January. And you're going to see that basic wave on 7 more slides. Big price peaks for just about everything in the summer of 21. Then they go down different ways, different levels. Enormous increase in corrugated. Starting in late 23, plateaued, went down a bit. Actually, it was too high. I don't know how many of y'all in here are buyers. I don't know any buyers who were happy paying over $100 a ton for OCC. Much happier seeing those prices there. And frankly, I think 70, 80 is a great price. Oh, and by the way, these are national prices. In most cases, Southeast prices are higher than national. So let's go on to RMP. RMP is around $42 a ton nationally. Not a bad price again. About a $30 price spread between OCC and RMP. And let's go down to my favorite utterly weird market, natural HDPE. That stunning price increase in the summer of 21 goes down, goes up, completely collapses because the one company that really wanted recycled content in their bottles was sold to another company who could cared less. And that totally destroyed the natural HDPE market for a while. And since then, it started going back up. It's 84 cents a pound nationally as of the end of January, a little bit higher today. That is a lot of money for natural HDPE. All I can say is to those of you who are buying, or selling natural HDPE, enjoy those prices. They ain't gonna last, but enjoy them while they're there. Color HDPE, just the opposite of the natural. And it is really flatlined. That market is a construction market. It's piping. Because the color, once it gets into that resin, you can't take out. So for a packager to meet those colored HDPE recycled content goals, they have to pay double extra for a company who will actually separate by color, which is expensive. So, you know, it's all about housing starts. PET. And this is where, you know, COVID changed everything, and it has thrown recycling markets for a real loop. Normally, recycling markets for PET and aluminum are very hot spring, summer, start to go down in August and September, get flat for one very simple reason. We drink our beverages far more in the summer than we do the rest of the year. You have low supply in spring and in winter. Then you need a lot starting around Memorial Day. And then get to August, you're not going to be selling as much in September or October. So, you know, you got too much supply. That demand curve is all out of whack for PET, and it's the same for aluminum. Right now, PET prices are very good, around 13.5 cents nationally, a little higher elsewhere, especially in the Southeast, and it's good markets. Polypropylene is another kind of interesting market. It's actually going up rather dramatically, 13.25 per pound. I think there's a certain company in Alabama that may be stocking up on polypropylene. Aluminum cans, just like PET, but even better. Look at that. It's over 90 cents. It's nationally, it's around 87 cents a pound. And this is the winter. That price is actually going up, and this is the winter. Why? Very simple reason. First of all, there is new production capacity in the aluminum industry to make can sheet that relies on recycled content. So they've got to build up those supply lines to get in the cans. The other reason is the aluminum industry is finding new markets in non-alcoholic beverages. And so they're making more cans for those markets. It's water, it's other non-alcoholic drinks. Steel cans, I'll be honest, steel is one market I just don't understand. It's construction. You know, steel cans can be made into anything. When I'm in Maryland, I like to point out that one of these days, one of my steel cans may end up in the new Key Bridge when they rebuild it. Why not? It's a great market. So it's a hard market to decipher. Right now, there seems to be a shortage of supply, and we think that's why it's going up a bit. But look at these price changes in February. Natural HDP nationally is up to 91 cents a pound. That is a stunning price increase. That defies gravity. Color HDP went up a little bit. PET went up a little bit. Steel has gone up a little bit. So hey, not a bad February so far. Now you put this into per ton value for recyclables. Aluminum has always been the biggest. Although when I redo this chart next month, I expect natural HDP will actually be more valuable per ton than aluminum. It happened in the mid 21. It's utterly bizarre kind of market, but again, if you are selling natural HDP, enjoy every second. And then you see the down slide, and you get to corrugated and RMP at the far end of that chart. They're the lowest per ton. However, this is partially because you have to put it into context. You look at recyclables at a MRF for a community. Paper is the bulk of what could be called the recycling cake. It's the tonnage, it's the volume. Aluminum, PET, that's the icing on the cake. Natural HDPE, that's the sugar. That's the icing on the cake. And right now the icing is really hot. But what you see, when you then translate this to the value of a MRF ton, it's really more about paper than anything else. Now you see those peaks there, all the markets are hot in 21 and early 22. Then they go down, they go up again. I don't have this corrected. We just released the fourth quarter data at the Northeast Recycling Council. I think it was late last week. About $83 a ton, down from over $100, about $107 a ton for third quarter. And that downward ton is all about paper. It's about all those OCC and RMP market prices going down in this last quarter of last year, and therefore dragging down the overall value of a ton of materials at a MRF. So let's look at exports really quickly. And we export stuff for a very simple reason. Somebody else will pay more for them than we will. Exports for paper have been dropping, national soared. Probably the 2024 number is going to be around 13 million tons. Put it into context, over 20 million tons in 2017 or 2016 before national sword hit. Look at plastics. Whoa! Slope. That would challenge a skier. And then it sort of slows down. And now it's been flat for the last 3 years. What has happened is I think we've hit a place where the exports we're doing, they're going, more than half go to Canada or Mexico. It's a very steady market. Most of those exports are either going to be film or they're going to be non-bottle rigid plastic packaging. There are markets for them, and that's where they're going. So you're going to see just a very slow decline in those markets over the next couple of years. Now, in the past, when I talk about new recycled content capacity, I always like to start with this picture of a recycling, of the pulping equipment for a new recycled content mill in Washington. But the big expansion in paper recycled content capacity is over. Started in 2017, went through last year. There'll be a new mill at the end of this year, somewhere between 7 and 8 million tons of new recycled content capacity in the paper industry. But you put all that new capacity in, something's got to give. But let's start with aluminum and glass first. Ball is building a new can plant in Oregon, sort of in some ways replacing a mill they shuttered in Seattle the previous year. Glass, not a happy industry. Ardagh just announced it's closing its Illinois mill for market conditions, and they closed 2 mills the year before. Owens, Illinois has closed either 2 or 3 mills in the last 3 years. Very simple reason. We use as much glass today as we did in 1970. And there's a lot more people around today than there were in 1970. This is not an industry that is growing. It's an industry in decline. I used to work for the glass industry, but hey, it's just what it is. Paper, all that new capacity. Well, Greif is closing a paperboard machine in Georgia and a containerboard mill in Massachusetts. And this is just this year. There have been other closures the last couple of years because, as my friend Miles Cohen likes to say, you only need to make so many boxes. And you have all that capacity to make boxes, and you're not going to be able to use it all. So what you're seeing is obvious. Inefficient mills are being closed. Absolutely inevitable. Graphics Packaging's new Waco mill, they just released a press release. We're on track to open in December. That mill actually replaces 3 mills. They'll be gone. Total capacity is about a 5% increase for this idea of plastic packaging to paper. And you look at plastics, ADS, they're breaking ground on an expansion in Georgia. ADS is one of the 2 biggest plastic recycling end markets in the country. That's a positive sign. On the other hand, Eastman, in their quarterly report, said their $355 million DOE grant for chemical recycling, that grant may be in danger. Who knows? That's a big grant too. And then Evergreen in California is facing some mass layoffs. They're not totally covering that facility. It's primarily a PET one, I believe, former Carbon Light company. But in plastics, we're seeing some of this stuff going in different directions. And it's overall, the capacity is increasing, but we'll talk about the plastics industry as a whole. So where is the economy going? I don't know. And I think most economists, if you ask them, will say they still have not figured out this post-COVID economy and what it means for what we do, what we buy, and so forth. Now, I know this slide is way too busy. Essentially, for the last 5 years, I pointed out the economy is uncertain. Maybe we're going to have a soft landing from the recession. We ain't there yet. Inflation is up to 3% now. GDP growth is strong. I mean, the data is so mixed. Industrial output's up, jobs are up, unemployment went down by 1.1%. Hiring rate is up. On the other hand, credit card delinquencies are up. The personal savings rate is at its lowest point since 22. Household debt is up. Retail sales were up, but what's going to happen next? You look at the Institute of Supply Management. This is one of my favorite indices for a very simple reason. These are the people who are buying raw materials. They're buying raw materials so their companies can make new products. And when they make those bids on raw materials, when they go out to buy them, they're making an estimate on where they think the economy is going and how many new products they think their company is going to be selling. Hey, they're pretty cheerful. Manufacturing activity went up by 50%. New orders in January went up to 55%. That's a very positive outlook. Production is up. Services went down, but services is a little bit different here. But then you look at consumer sentiment. Both the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment and the Conference Board went down. They went down in January. Normally, a new administration gets a bump on consumer sentiment. But people, it's nice that we're used to 4% inflation. The average voter is not confident about that. They don't like that. And people are concerned that we're not on top of inflation and we're going to see more and more price increases. And you look at what retailers are reporting in their quarterly reports. There's a growing split in purchasing based on our economic health. Private brands like Kirkland at Costco, they are growing more rapidly than your national brands. Now, private brands, they're sold at a discount. And what's most important, it's not the revenue that's up, it's the unit sales that count. I don't care how many times a brand says our revenue is up, that's inflation right now. But if they're saying their unit count is down, that says they are selling less and they need less containers and they need less shipping boxes to ship those in. Lower income customers are much harder hit by inflation because of higher prices. They're cutting back on necessities. That's why some of the stores, such as I think it's General something, I'm blanking on the name, that sell at very low prices to lower income people. They're in financial problems right now. Walmart, the last 3 quarters have celebrated the fact that rich people are now buying at Walmart because they're looking for bargains. So there's some weird things happening out there in the economy that I don't think we really understand yet. And then tariffs, and we'll deal with that maybe later. So paper market drivers, box shipments down 8.5% over the last 2 years. Not good. Containerboard though and boxboard production did go up in the last quarter, so that's good. There's some rebound there. But again, that's a big drop, 8.5% in 2 years. Supply. Product imports are down, so some of the supplies out of the big box stores are down. Lower product sales on the unit basis, that means there's less OCC being generated. And the residential supply is clearly not keeping up the way it should. And you get into wild cards. When are those export markets going to strengthen again? When are they going to start acting the way they're supposed to? The East Coast dock strike, technically settled in January. Union has not yet voted on those. Union vote is February 25th. Let's hope it's positive. E-commerce, its share of retail sales is slowly increasing, but it still has not hit the high in the 3rd quarter of 2020. We do not have yet the data out. It'll come out next week on 4th quarter for last year. Plastic. Recycled plastics historically have been less expensive than virgin plastic. It's how they've been priced and how they've been sold. That is not true anymore. Too much virgin and too much domestic off spec. And my friends, we are now a net importer of recycled plastic. Have been since 23. Big change there. Much more recycled plastic is available. Demand in the plastics industry, it's not a happy industry to be in this day. Plastic economists like to talk about a plastics recession. Durables especially are not doing well, especially durables are not doing well after the splurge of spending in 21 and 22. Capacity utilization 80%, historic lows. First rise in December in 7 months, but you know, they got a long ways to go. Private housing starts down 4.4% year over year. Same with new permits. Again, you know, that housing, that's the market for a lot of HDP, and that's also a market for other plastics that are recycled. Markets beyond February. Well, I think with paper, it's fairly safe to say prices should go up in March or April. Kind of normal. I hate that term. Normal isn't normal anymore, but still, I think that one's good. I do think we can expect a rebound in the spring. Plastics. HDP natural is not going to stay at those levels. Sooner or later, something's going to happen to it. Color HDP is just waiting for housing starts. It's waiting for construction. PET should be softening, but export demand is very strong on the West Coast. A lot of that goes into Mexico. There's tremendous capacity in Mexico to make PET resin. And we don't have that capacity in this country. So they take that stuff out of California and other states, make it into the resin, ship it to the States. Metals and glass, steel industry production is off 2.5% year over year. On the other hand, mills seem to be under some pressure to increase their inventories due to shorter winter supplies. Aluminum is resisting its normal decline due to new capacity and due to expansion into non-alcoholic drinks. As for aluminum and glass overall, people are not drinking the way they used to. Consumption of beer, wine, and distilled liquors is down. That means you need less packages for them. So I guess if you want to help aluminum and glass, y'all need to start drinking more, but do it responsibly. So finally, trends to watch. What's going to happen to consumer demands for goods, especially durables and construction? Is the East Coast dock strike over? Down the road, tariffs, and I do have some thoughts for tariffs. We can save them for questions or afterwards. And just all the uncertainty in the economy. How is all this going to play out? We just don't know the answers to that. I also have in these slides some fun things. I got my Goodreads. There's some fascinating articles about where packaging or certain items are going. These are the basic sources I like to use. You'll notice Mr. Moore's name is one of those. And this is my contact data. You can always send me an email. I can send you the slide with my typos corrected and all the stuff in the speaker notes. So with that, do we have time for questions or have I wasted taking too long? Any questions? Yes. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Oh, I could.
On one of your paperboard slides, I don't know, towards the end here, it looked to me, and I'm a toxicologist, so my information will be filtered, but I noticed that production of boxboard and some kinds of products was going up, but usage and shipping was going down. Is that
was
real?
like fourth quarter numbers.
Okay.
They are seeing a rebound. The companies are reporting a rebound.
So that's a little
at the end of the
artificial
year,
than
yeah.
what we were seeing.
That has yet
Okay.
to play out.
I didn't understand how that could actually work in the long term.
No, that all data is short term.
Yeah.
You know, and we really tend to react more to the immediate data as opposed to the longer term data.
Okay, I understand. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Given that now we're a net importer for plastic, with the uncertainty with the economy and tariffs, do you see that impacting those numbers at all?
Oh, great question. What is the impact of the economy and tariffs on the fact that we're a net importer of recycled plastics? Classic answer out of somebody who lives in the DC area, it all depends. Will, for instance, there be a tariff on recycled plastic pellets coming into this country? We get a lot of those out of Canada and Mexico in particular. Will there be a tariff on plastics? Mexico or Canada is a very big supplier of virgin polyethylene and virgin polypropylene. Now, let's say there's a tax on virgin resin coming in. That's actually good if you're a plastic recycler. Makes your competition more expensive. But if there's also a tax on your stuff going out of the country, that's not so good. So it's hard to say because and we're in this stupid game going on over tariffs. And it could really go bad if countries dig in their heels and decide, by golly, we're not going to be pushed around. They tariff us, we're tariffing them. Check out the words smoot Hawley. It's tariff in 1930. It's one of the reasons the Depression got worse because we erected enormous tariff orders. Got to learn from history. Any other questions? I thank you all for your time, and I look forward to any questions after.
Thank you, Chaz. He's a wealth of knowledge. So like he said, he's leaving today at 11. So we get out of here at 10. If you have any, 11:30. Okay. If you have any more questions, come find him. Okay. Awesome. So we're tracking right on time. Our next speaker is Fernando Wadskier. Did I say that right? Wadskier. Yep. Fernando, he's quite the personality. I think you guys will enjoy his session here. He's going to touch more on high grades, de-inking grades, the virgin pulp versus waste paper. So help me welcome Fernando.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I've been blessed to be in a lot of different conferences as a speaker, and I never see such a weird microphone. Are you ever done a colonoscopy? When the doctors come to you like this? You're about to pass down, the guys show up, and you no. I apologize in advance for my my accent, my Venezuelan accent. If you guys don't understand, I got a guy named Daryl Reynolds sitting right there. He can explain it to you guys. The idea of this presentation, I really want to, you take out of this. I want you right, I mean, you guys pay your money to get in, and I want to, you guys come here with better knowledge of what's going on and the ingredients, and especially in the tissue market, okay? It's very important for me that you guys actually come here and take something and say, well, I learned something in this conference. So first of all, I'm gonna ask you a big question. This presentation is completely related to a tissue business, okay? And the ingredients like coated book stock, sorted office waste, a white layer, and the demand for those grades and the market for those grades, okay? So, and when we make tissue in the tissue mill, what is the main raw material that we use? You know, it's simple. You know, we are using or either virgin pulp, okay, or we using the ingredients, okay. I'm pretty sure that most of the people here, they're here for a couple of reasons. One is to trade in the waste paper. We're in the recycling conference. We're not in a pulp conference. So I'm pretty sure that most of the people here are sitting here to then go meet and see how much tonnage can move in terms of recycling plate. So what is the main grade that you guys compete in terms of when we're using that kind of material in a tissue mill, where you guys compete with virgin pulp, okay? Virgin pulp is completely related to the waste paper. Whatever happened in the pulp business is going to impact in the waste paper, okay? So I'm going to talk about a lot. That's the one that I want you guys to learn a lot about virgin pulp. I'm pretty sure that some people here know what's going on in the pulp business, but the people that doesn't know and want to learn how your recycling business get impacted, That's what I want you guys to get, the pulp business. So we're gonna start with the pulp price, and once again, this is try to. Can I take this thing out? Okay, whatever. Um, the pulp business. Okay, this is kind of like a pulp price. We're seeing, and since 2020, you can see here how the pulp price, they were very low, and then after COVID, here the price went absolutely insane. Most of that is because you know what happened with all the logistics, and everybody was paper mills. So a lot of people was, including us, we were crazy and looking for tonnage. So you see those prices went up here in 2022. And then right now, and we are here in January 2025, you see, and once again, that's not exactly prices. Like people that buy cheaper, people that buy higher than that, but this kind of the spot prices, this is not an index prices. So this price of the negotiating month to month, no link to any kind of, okay? You can see here in this graphic over here, the way that we are here in 2025 in terms of south bleach softwood kraft and hardwood. And you can see also kind of like, I cannot even see from here, but I can tell you that it's kind of like the direction that the pulp of pricing is going right now. So once again, this is spot prices. It can be different in every country and every market. I just wanna, once again, the idea is you learn what's going on in the pulp market. So I'm gonna give you a couple of comments here in terms for the pulp market situation. The European and Latin American market were flat in December, suggesting that the bottom of the market might have been found. What does mean? That's a good news for you guys. If you guys are selling West paper, for example, coated book stock, solid office waste, solid white layer, and you guys have been complaining about price being kind of stuck in the same level for a couple of months, well, it might change because we reached the bottom of the pulp prices, and that will affect the price of the waste paper. And here, when I say Suzano is the largest pulp producer in the world. Dorado is the second largest producer in the world. They already has announced around a global price hike of about $60 in February in Europe, and El Dorado has been announced about increase about $20 in Asia and $60 in North America and in Europe. What that means is we're already had in the bottom of the pulp prices, and I think now this is going to be going up, which is going to affect eventually the waste paper prices. The tendency of the waste paper price and pulp is not, the waste paper prices doesn't react. It's always takes sometime 2 months, sometime 3 months. But if the pulp price going up, believe me, the price of waste paper is going to go up. It's always happened. You have kind of like a nice supplies. Inventory's got been kind of the seasons here, 41 days of pulp supplies worldwide. And this is kind of what happened in the ports, in the China's ports. It's kind of keeps the same level, so I'm not going to waste too much time there. More comments of pulp market is Chinese market began improving the second half of December, driving to our rebates targets. I mean, some of the contracts you have in pulp, if you have like a minimum tonnage that you have to accomplish at the end of the year. So if you're missing 20,000 tons, so in order to achieve that rebate or that amount to get a extra discount or rebate at the end of the year, you see a lot of people buying pulp at the end. So that's why you see a lot of people buying, but it's not like the demand went crazy or something like that. There are concerns about pulp demand in the Q1 because the new year, the Chinese New Year, normally historically That demand increased after the Chinese New Year's disappear, and so those guys and the price turned to go up as well. Significant maintenance downtown, especially in the Q1 for the limited supply. Susana expect to take, Susana's again, the largest producer of pulp, expect to take both plant and economic downtown and for bleach hardware craft in the Q1 of 2025. And so many, some of mills in Uruguay and Spain, they have production problems, which is that's not good news because that limited your capacity in terms of hardwood. And this is the last one here, I think is the most important one. It's a huge market now being growing of dissolving pulp. So one of the largest paper mills, which I deal with it, it's called Brazil. And I've been into this mill here. It's a beautiful pulp mill. They switched now one of the lines to pulp hardwood to dissolving pulp, taking out 400,000 tons of the market. What is going to happen? Well, if you take out 400,000 tons of hardwood pulp, eventually it's going to increase, it's going to have less offer and it's going to increase the demand. So, and that's going to affect the price. This hasn't changed really. And listen, we were here, you were here in 2004 to 25. This is all the new capacity. This is already running right now. UPM, Susano, all those guys are pulp producers. And that's hardwood producers because not all the pulp producers compete. The software producers doesn't compete with you guys in West Paper. Compete with the one who compete with you guys is the hardwood producers, okay? So all these paper mills here, Arauco, UPN, Susano, they're huge. One is in Uruguay, one is in Brazil, and the other one is in Brazil, CMPC is in Chile. All those guys have a huge capacity they just installed. And they're already up and running. So that's why you see that you saw the tendency of the price going down when they finish those to running all those paper mills because it's a lot of pulp in the business. But if you can see here from 2024 to almost 2020, 27, 2028, it's nothing new built. Pulp mill is going to be Arauco with 3.5 million tons a year for 2027 at the end of 2027. And you also have to take in consideration out of now the Chinese mill, the Chinese as a country, which is the largest of the pulp mills in the world. Now they building their own paper mills. So what is going to happen? Okay. All those new capacity that those Brazilians, Chileans, Uruguayans built was based to sell the main customer on the world. Well, guess what? Chinese is building their own pulp mills, which is good for us. I'm a t-shirt producer. That means that the price might be steady for a while, but are not good for all those new capacity coming. So you see this project over here, the El Dorado, Brazil, those projects still stand by. This not highlight this because they're not approved by the board of directors yet. Might happen, might not. This is kind of TTO has for price from here to, what does it say here? I don't read anything. Is that 2020? 28? Yeah. 29, okay. You can see here, this is a forecast. Once again, this is a forecast, mean that this can change. This is not 100% sure this can change. If you can see here the 2025 kind of stable prices, and you see going down the 926 like this, and then going up like crazy in 2027. That's right. The Arauco mill or the new pulp mill start running. When they start running, the price should be going down again. But normally, that's the one that you want to take, so you guys can learn how can affect you guys in the waste paper. This forecast, which should be the equal of the forecast of the in grades like quarter book stock, sorted office waste, and sorted white layer, and so. Okay, if you see that tendency of the price going up between 2026 and 2028, you should be able to have strong prices and the in grades. Just you guys can put it in your forecast. So don't be frustrated if you still have lower price, but you will be able to make good amount of money those years. The waste paper comments now. What you guys came here as a recycling company. Um, you have the ingredients such as coated book stock, sorted office waste, white layers, maintaining a stable price for the last few months. The generation has been declining since holiday season and December. Domestic mills in USA have securing all tonnage available in the ingrades. It's a strong demand in domestic, not that strong in international business or export. The logistic and booking has been challenged over the past year. So what happened? If you're a recycle, you're a packer, and you are you are used to sell export, and you're close to the port. You're in Baltimore, you're in New York, you're in Los Angeles, Seattle, Boston, Charleston, Savannah, and you have problems with bookings. What is your fair reaction? You got to keep that inventory moving. So what do? It's easy for you to sell domestic. So with all those issues that we have in terms of logistic and supply chains, it's a lot of domestic parker. They're ready to sell domestic at lower price. They start dealing with containers, booking, truck transportation, ports, congestion, delays, and all kind of things. The dynamic of the waste export trading shifts significantly impact with the tariff. What you were saying, nobody knows what's going to happen, but we have a huge amount of trading between USA, Mexico, and Canada. So anything that I'm explaining to you here in terms of the market can shift significantly if we have a trade war. Okay, we export to Canada a lot of waste paper, going to Cascade, going to Kruger. We export from the United States a lot of waste paper to Mexico. What about if you have 25% of that? What the Mexico is going to do? I mean, are they going to start generating more local stuff? A lot of stuff can happen that we don't know. And the uncertainty is the worst part, because something that you don't know is going to happen is it really you cannot forecast. I mean, I just came back for a quarterly meeting in the company that I work, and we really had like a two budgets. I mean, one with tariff and one without tariff. I mean, anything can change significantly, and that's not healthy when you have a big corporation having two different budgets. And let's just adapt to see what happens. So uncertainty is not good for any business. The generation's waste paper, particularly for the ingrades, has experienced significant change over the past decade, creating uncertainty and availability and response to pulp producers has been increasing, the same that I explained to you guys. This is another thing that you have to be clear here. And I don't want you guys, get disappointed or something like that. Definitely the ingrades are dying, pretty much, okay? It's less coated book stock, less sorted office waste, less sorted was white layer, period. We're going paperless, everything is, phones and all the stuff. So that reason that all those pulp supply those paper mills, because they know that eventually, I mean, it's not going to be enough the ingrades to produce tissue. So all those engineers that work for us in those paper mill, they have to find out the way to use the grades of waste paper in order that not related with the ingrades, sorted office waste, in order to create white paper and then the ink paper. The ink OCC, the ink DLK, I don't know what they're gonna do, but they have to go to that route. And this is the only option. That the worst always tend to reinvent itself. So I'm pretty sure, and I'm confident that the waste paper is not, excuse me, it's not gonna be over. It's just gonna evolve and change. Okay, one of the last thing, and I don't know how much time I have left, but they only affect all the market price and pulp and waste paper is what happened in the supply chains. And last year I didn't say anything about supply chains. I think I want you guys about what's going on international and supply chains. I know people here probably only deal domestically. A lot of people deal also with international and exports. So kind of like learn a little bit about, because that will affect anything happen and logistics supply chain will affect even domestic market. The first point here, we don't even have to talk about it. That was the deal that we have in the port with the International Lodgemen Association. This is no longer an issue. The agreement was for aim to more design ports, create more jobs, improve efficiency, strength supplies, and work pace increase, of course. And I think they got what they need. The scope of the magnitude of potential U.S. tariff remain uncertain. So that's what I'm saying, that the TTO, which is one of the index, say he assumed that trade war will not occur or with short lived. Hopefully. And I tell you something, when I put this because I saw that and I was agree with this statement maybe a month and a half ago. But I'm not sure right now if that will not happen. So at the point, I think will be maybe it is just trying, do the tariffs just to negotiate. But I think it can be more complicated than that. The port congestion in the world experiencing delays affecting operations, resulting in demurrage charges and additional costs for importers. So that's what I'm saying. All the list is a mess. The supply chain is a mess. And we as a company, as a producer, we need to have a new realities and lead time in order to not run out of paper and the paper mill, which is most expensive to pay fiber to any price. And I know when because I'm running a little bit of time. You're okay. I got. You're good. Okay, perfect. Okay, I like to add this because so you can see a little bit more of a statistic what's going on with the international business. Guys, this is the capacity that we have in terms of container. We have 3,200,000 of containers in the 2024. They have a plan to, this is going to add, the 500,000 containers is going to be delivered in 2025. And this is all that you can see here is going to subtract whatever we have available or capacity, okay? You have 2 million containers and delayed in ports. Right now, they're delayed. Here it's right here, 2 million. And then you have 1.6 million routing above. That means they're supposed to go to the Suez Canal, and then they have to go around the world because all the terrorists and all the stuff that we have. That's subtracting to. You have 1,000 containers is either repair or lay up, and then 100,000 containers is scrapping, which is, I don't know what scrapping means. But somebody can explain it to me. Okay? So at the end of the day, we only have 27 million containers capacity at the end of 25. So less than we need. You can see here the port congestions. Here the same thing that I told you here, we have more than $2 million that this delayed. So that would eventually will create a massive destruction in the logistic industry. You can see here geopolitical tensions start increasing instability, the crisis in the Red Sea, and it just kind of the bottleneck that we have around the world. The ocean freight market allude, the container shipping has been disrupted for 4 years for significant uncertainties remain. Red Sea is a crisis lasting longer than expected, full of the squeezing capacity, up to 87% of current carrier orders replacement limiting available. Potential, this is very important, the potential U.S. policy chief create a meter uncertainties probably impact China, Mexico, and Canada during the high tariff. So once again, I hate to repeat that so much, but we are in the moment that we can go either where it can be a disaster, it can be good, it can be, and the thing is that we don't know. I mean, we don't know how deep can affect us if those tariffs going on play. So we had to take a look. Hopefully next year, somebody else do a presentation and see if it went through. We did great of fasten your seatbelt. Um, it's also weather-related destruction. I don't. It was there. I don't really 100% agree with that. Regulatory rules increasing the shipping costs, and I think at the end here we have some recommendation. This is last slide, so it's and it's also that's good if you guys will apply if you guys are working a tissue mill, paper mill, linerboard mill, and it's you have to be more flexible in terms to handle inventories. We used to be famous handling inventory just in time. I don't think that's the case right now. It's not highly recommended. Build in inventories and alternative routes to market. Balance between short-term and long-term shipping contract commitments. Spread your volume across alliance and carriers. Allow for sufficient lead time in case of disruption. Once again, this is come back for inventories. Don't have the inventory. Sure, I'm a buyer from one of the largest tissue mills during Central and North America, and I will have the fight because at the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for their inventory. If they don't buy on time, I mean, they run out of paper, the thing is gonna be on me. So I'm trying to convince that this is not the time to have just-in-time inventory because those just-in-times just become just too late. And nothing like a mill running out of paper is more expensive than any high-priced raw material. Enjoying flexible sources strategy and resilience to come to a price is set up than the past. So, the shipping rates change back and forward. So, I mean, try of course negotiate the best that you can, but don't be too picky because you probably run out of bookings. And the last slide is to say thank you. It's a woman. I think it's lost in the bushes. And I don't know how she's doing there. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'd say that we have. Anyone have a question? You have a question? Yeah. Okay. She have a question. I'm gonna repeat it.
Like the increase the supply, you expect the supply to shrink. And, with the virgin, how many mills? I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions on mine. So
The happy hours at 4 o'clock.
how many mills?
Speaking the mic.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, right. So a lot of how many mills are in the world? Can you give me an idea that would be able to be flexible with their spending? So are there mills that are purchasing virgin pulp and recovered fiber? And the mills that are purchasing the recovered fiber, the de-inking grades, if that supply is going to shrink, are they going to be able to shift and buy virgin pulp? And, I got a lot of
That's
things
a
here.
great question. Yes. Now I'm going to explain it to you because that's my main job, actually. That's the main job that we have there. We have what we call furnish. Sorry if I didn't say the right word, but furnish is the percentage of the mix of raw material that we use to make tissue. Okay. We have virgin pulp, we have waste paper. So normally you have also different markets, especially in Latin America. You have paper we just make only out of pulp, and you have paper only make out of waste paper. You have some kind of mix. So what happened is the market stream and waste paper. Of course, we're going to use more pulp. Now, if the pulp is the demand is start too strong and the prices are way higher, we're gonna go crazy looking for waste paper because the paper is still cheaper than used virgin pulp. And as long you have that gap, you're gonna keep using waste paper. And that's what we do. When that gap switch and you say, well, I'm gonna buy so for $100 a ton and the 150, okay. That doesn't make any sense because the pole and the waste paper you have shrinkage, which is lost 30% of the fiber. You gotta add chemicals, and when you add it up, all this waste, the pole's gonna be cheaper. So why you want to use waste paper? And that's what has been happening the last year and a half. A matter of fact, I haven't buy a pound in 3 months. I know a lot of people here are saying, trying to guess. It's true. I haven't buy a pound in 3 months. But that might change because the pulp price is going to go up now. So you are absolutely right. We play. Let's see. We don't. I don't want to see so informal, but we kind of play by ear. It's depend, what the prices are, and always it's all about mathematics. I mean, we make the calculations. If we use more waste paper is better at the final cost, we're going to use waste paper. If the pulp is better at the end, we're going to use pulp. So it can change.
In the US, we've got a handful of US tissue mills that are running primarily recovered fiber.
Yeah.
And then you've got brown recycled tissue towel napkin grades, and you've got white tissue towel napkin grades.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on how these paper mills that are using the white grades, making the bleach tissue towel napkin recycled away from home,
Yeah.
how they're preparing for the supply potentially for us to see the trend the same way we saw in groundwood?
Yeah.
Are they preparing?
You mean the
for-
generation going down?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Yes. And one thing else, like I mentioned to you, that this world of tissue tend to reinvent itself. Okay. So yes, we all clear that generation of the ingrates are dying. And we don't know what's going to be the future. Now, we need to have our engineers and the tissue machines and the tissue paper try to see if they can use soft CC or DLK to the ink a paper and turn that to tissue. That hasn't happened yet because only the percentage that you can bleach is only 6%. But eventually will be the engineer, the technology to use the waste paper that is available in the market. Even if the ink grades die, and I don't say I probably want to be retired when that happen. I'm not talking about next year or 2 months. I'm probably about probably 10, 20 years. When that die, we have to be able to use maybe mixed paper to do the same quality of tissue paper that we're doing right now. Hopefully, and I guarantee you that we have very smart people and the engineers and the tissue mills, it will get to that point. Right now, we know we have the statistics that 20 years ago, when I came here in this country 25 years ago, it was sorted office waste everywhere. I remember paying sorted office waste $90 a ton, $80 a ton. Now, how much it is? You have also inflation, all this stuff, but it's also it's not enough. It's not enough. So all this, and I'm going to explain you because I know that we're running out of time. That's not me. That's not mine.
You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Oh, hold on. I got it. It's right here. Okay. Here, and this is live here, is very important because you see those pulp mills, that's producer mills, Arauco, UPS, Susano, and then Arauco over here with $3 million. Those guys are increasing those pulp producers because they know that eventually us, the tissue producers, we're going to have to use more pulp if nobody find a solution with coated with stock sort of his waste and all those grades, they are dying. Okay. So those investments, I'm not talking about $100 million. I'm talking about each one of these that you see here is $2.5 billion plan. And I've been in each one of them. This is the completely amazing. I mean, you want to put $2.4 billion to increase capacity pulp, it's because you know something. You're not going to increase $2.4 billion dollars a pulp mill, and knowing that the West paper is going to take over. So that's what it is. It's not a secret. So, in the next 10, 20 years, to answer your question, we're going to be a mix. Depending how the price move, we're going to use more West paper or sometime more pulp. And that will be our final answer. And once again, the happy hours of 4, just if you can add that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Fernando. Okay, our next speaker, last but not least, is Marty Metro, CEO of Used Cardboard Boxes Environmental, UCB Environmental. And Marty is excited to talk to you guys, so let's welcome him up.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's very odd. Okay. Hey guys, I have actually, I wasn't here last year, but this is my 3rd time speaking here in the last 15 years. Been in this industry for about 21 years. And what we've heard so far this morning is really, really good information. Some of it very complicated and complex. And I'm gonna, I hope, change it up a little bit and make it really simple. I want to talk about how to make more money, period. How to make more money in recycling, how to make more money than recycling. But we're going to do this together. I need 3 volunteers. And I'm not going to tell you what you're volunteering for. Thank you. 1, you just stand up. Awesome. Just stand up. 2 more. Come on. Somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the back. Give me a volunteer. You came here for a reason. 2, thank you. And 3, awesome. Thank you. Okay, going to be a little interactive. Well, first of all, I have to back up and tell you, I got into my hotel last night at 3:05 a.m., not because I was out partying, but because my flight was so delayed out of Dallas that I finally got at 3:05. So I'm a little exhausted. Normally I would bring donuts, but there's food out there. So my three volunteers, I'd like to hear your name, company or organization you're with. I want to ask you why you're here, and it's a double two-part question. Why are you here at this conference, and why did you stay through until today? Because a couple people have left the room. Why did you stay? And I need to know what your favorite donut is. So we'll go in order.
My name's Jack Dowling. I'm with Greif. I'm here to learn and grow as I'm kind of new in the industry. And the favorite donut, I'm more of a bagel guy myself.
Really? All right, that's good. That's fair. I have a couple of handouts. I will pass them out. And maybe even if you didn't volunteer. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Gigi Gephardt. I'm with Synergy Waste Group. I'm here representing my state organization, which is State of Alliance for Recycling. And the purpose of being here is to get deeper into the markets, understanding them. We're going to get some real legislative issues. And then I also participate with REMA on the national level. So glad to be here. My favorite donut.
Start with what on a national level?
REMA.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
You're going to be in St. Louis Thursday?
No, I will not.
I'm leaving here to go to St. Louis.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, I'll be in DC next week though. So.
Awesome.
My favorite donut would be the maple glazed.
Very common. I can't disagree.
Morning. I'm Alan Grove. I'm with General Kinematics. We're here for mostly networking with existing customers and general education. This is one of the few shows that we really get a chance to sit down in sessions and learn something here.
And I'm sorry, tell me the company again.
General Kinematics. We make vibratory recycling equipment.
Awesome.
And my favorite donut is Boston cream. And you are both wrong. Boston cream's the best.
You're all wrong because that's my favorite. I can not always find strawberry, and it's very rare strawberry with sprinkles, but that's mine. So let's get started. First, we'll address the gorilla in the room. Yes, Marty Metro is my real name. I'm not a DJ. I'm not a traffic reporter. I'm not a superhero, although I'd like to be one. I get that all the time. And I get DJ all the time. I get DJ for my name and my voice independently. So who is this Marty Metro guy? Real quick, 30 some freaking years ago, I graduated University of Maryland, went right to get my MBA. I had no idea what I was doing, and got hired by a company called Anderson Consulting. I like to say if you have gray hair or no hair, you might remember Anderson. It's now Accenture. And I got right into this thing called SAP, which at the time was the largest software, ERP software company in the world. And they were just coming to the US. This was back in the mid 1990s. And I spent about 10 years implementing SAP systems all over the world. I got very into production planning, materials management. I was in warehouses and factories every single day. And in about 1997 or 1998, I was definitely known in that world as one of the experts in SAP in the entire country. And today, I sell used cardboard boxes. And boy, are my parents proud. I say are my parents proud because it was a very difficult conversation to have. Mom, Dad, I'm quitting. I am going to start a company that buys and sells used moving boxes. I said, so many people move into the house and unpack their boxes and then either throw them away. They don't fit in the blue bins. Yet people like me are at liquor stores and grocery stores collecting used boxes. I'm gonna quit my job, and I'm gonna start a company to connect people that are moving with people who have just moved. And my father said, and I quote him, Marty, you're gonna have to sell a hell of a lot of used boxes to ever pay your rent. Well, we sell a hell of a lot of used boxes. And we do a lot more than just used boxes. We do lots of programs with lots of big recognizable companies. We call it our NASCAR page. Not putting this up to brag, putting this up to say that reuse is very opportunities in reuse. I want to talk about them. So, why have I spent the last 21 years promoting, implementing, struggling with reuse? I could, we'll have to read through it. I don't know why that happened, but that's okay. I could say it's better for the environment, and it is. I could say it's good, and it is. I could say that my clients are coming to me and begging for it. Not really. All of these are somewhat true, but between us, I've been doing it for 21 years for the money. Yes, you can make a lot more money in the recycling world when you implement reuse. So let's get into it. How have we done it? There's lots of ways to do it. There's lots of commodities that can be reused. But 21 years ago, I set out to do both Gaylord totes and shipping boxes, and that's mainly what we've been doing for years. And we move many, 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 many millions of these. So I want to kind of share with you what we do, share with you how we make money, and hopefully inspire and enable you to make more money too. So let's go into Gaylords first. Everybody know what a Gaylord is. Big 4 foot by 4 foot, roughly, corrugated cardboard box that sits on a pallet. People call them lots of different things. We buy many, many millions of these, and we buy them used. We only buy them used in 3 different places. We buy them from food, beverage, and CPG manufacturers. I forgot I have a screen over there. I don't have to look. That industry, CPG, consumer packaged goods, usually calls them Gaylords. So if you're talking to somebody in food manufacturing or beverage manufacturing, hey, I want to talk about your Gaylords. We also buy them from produce growers. If you ask a produce grower about your Gaylords, they might tell you they have no idea what you're talking about because they call them produce bins. Some of them call them melon bins. It all depends. And then we buy them from plastic manufacturers. And once again, call them Gaylord totes, call them produce bins. A lot of times plastic manufacturers will have no idea what you're talking about because they call them resin bins or resin totes because generally big plastic manufacturers get the resin in them. A lot of times these big, as I drink out of a plastic bottle, a lot of times these plastic manufacturers get their bulk of their resin by rail car, but they're also getting specialty resin, small volume resin, all kinds of unique resins, even the biggest, like Berry Plastics or Berry Global. We've been working with them for 15 years. They do an enormous amount by rail car, and also enormous amount of Gaylords because they have so many unique combinations of resins they have to buy. So that's kind of where we get them from. And we'll talk a little bit more about money and pricing in a bit, but we're basically talking to those companies and saying, hey, you are, well, actually, now that I remember, let me tell you what they're currently doing with Gaylords. Generally food, beverage, CPG, and even plastics companies, we find that they do one of three things. One, I like to say they use them as expensive trash cans. So they empty their Gaylord, whether it be food ingredients or pellets or whatever it is. Now they got it empty and they go, oh, well, I got this big trash can. I'll fill it up with my crap, throw it in the dumpster. And that's a travesty for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of times they're used as trash cans. Often companies want to do the right thing, so they go, oh, no. We don't use them for trash. We use them to collect recyclables. And that's great. So they got these empty Gaylords, they put them around their factory, and they collect all the recyclables. And then what do they do with them? Well, sometimes they end up in the trash anyway, back to option number one. A lot of times they get their recyclables sold. No disrespect to anyone in this room or in this industry where this is the case, but a lot of times companies are selling $4 worth of plastic in a $5 Gaylord. So they forget that I'm putting the commodity in the Gaylord, and they just assume, just like a pallet, and this happens in the pallet business also, they forget that the pallet is worth money, the Gaylord is worth money. And the third, not necessarily in this order, they will work their butts off to destroy them and cut them. And there's a certain company, I won't mention their name, they got a guy out back with a chainsaw, and he cuts up the Gaylords so that they'll fit in the baler. Oh my God, the amount of money it must cost for a human being who could chop his arm off with a chainsaw. So what do? We come in and say, hey, reuse is better, because it is. But then people say, well, what do you do with them? And again, this is a very high volume. I want to share with you what we do with them. Picture me, I gotta lose some weight. We basically sell into 5 different industries. We sell used Gaylords that we just got from CPGs and plastic manufacturers and agriculture companies. And we bring them in. I like to say we sort them, inspect them, palletize them, inventory them, and either resell them to one of these industries or return them back to the company that packed them in the first place. I didn't plan to talk a lot about that, but that's one of the things we do, is we do closed loop return programs for both Gaylords and shipping boxes. But that's kind of about us. I want to spend more time talking to what I hope is a lot of people interested in recycling and involved in recycling. So we sell them to automotive and e-waste dismantlers. So you've got these, e-waste, obviously a huge industry. You got to take apart these computers and appliances and such. And they need places to separate the plastics versus the metals versus the glass and so forth. Same exact thing with a car. Before you shred a car, you got to take all the parts out that you can and separate the commodities if you can. Then, once those things are dismantled, they then go to a recycler, whether it be a metal recycler, a plastic recycler, a paper recycler, a rubber recycler. Those companies also need Gaylords to sort and transport their commodities. So we provide them to that industry. Reverse logistics is, I'm no economist, but to me, reverse logistics is probably one of the fastest growing industries there is. It definitely is in our business, because e-commerce is growing so fast. So is the return business, and my wife probably contributes to that quite a bit. All those items that are bought on Amazon, all those items that are bought, whatever online, the percentage of returns is, I don't know the number, but it's absurd. Most returns don't go back to the vendor. Most returns go to a liquidator, an auction house, and they're not I like to say when somebody's returning, let's just say Walmart, when Walmart is returning back, whether it be something that didn't sell or a damaged good, they're not packaging it up in a little package. They're just taking it off the shelves and throwing it into a bin, and we provide those bins. And the last is also related to e-commerce, the parcel companies. That's also huge. Everybody who's not Amazon, well, Amazon and everybody who's not Amazon is moving parcels. There's final mile, there's so many different words for it, and there's so many different steps in the process that Gaylords are used. The U.S. Postal Service used an enormous, UPS, FedEx, you name them, Pitney Bowes, all those companies are using Gaylords to sort and transport packages, and we provide them to that industry. So I hope you can see huge industries unpacking them, huge industries that are buying them new. That's what we've been doing for our career, making the matches. And we build the software that actually makes those matches work. So that's a little bit about Gaylords. I want to talk about shipping boxes the same exact way, because it's very similar, but a little different. Where do they come from? Oops, I'll go back. I jumped ahead too fast. Our used shipping boxes, and I think most used shipping boxes that are out there in the marketplace, generally coming from food, beverage, and ingredients, and CPG companies also. However, Gaylords are generally the ingredients, the frozen foods, all kinds of food items, ingredients, I guess is a good word. The shipping boxes, sometimes the ingredients, generally it's the packaging. Generally it's the bottles, the caps, the cups, the lids, the pumps, the clamshells. I preach in my own company, a lot of people forget what CPG stands for, consumer packaged goods. So meat is not a CPG. Meat that's cut and put into a package is a CPG. Fruit is not necessarily a CPG. Fruit that's cut up and put into a consumer package as clamshell now is a CPG. So in order to make a CPG, in order to be a CPG, you have to package something for consumers. And that packaging comes from big plastic companies, generally, as we just looked at, and I'm going to take a sip. Bottles, caps, cups, lids come in an enormous amount of boxes. Just for visual, and we don't in this way, but imagine a Coca-Cola factory. They are, let's imagine a water bottle plant owned by Coca-Cola. Water, bottle, cap, label. Pretty much it. Those are your inputs. Water, bottle, cap, label. The bottles and caps are really two boxes. Bottle box, cap box. Now imagine Coca-Cola's volume. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, somebody is unpacking bottles, bottle boxes, cap boxes. It's redonkulous. So what do? We go out and say, hey, what are you doing with those boxes? And just like I talked about Gaylords, shipping boxes are handled a little bit differently. Yes, there's new automation. I've been doing this for too long, but there's all kinds of automation to automate this stuff. I haven't seen a ton of automation in the world of unpacking bottles and caps, but generally there's a human being that's getting a box of bottles, opening it up, putting the bottles in the assembly line, flattening the box, putting on a pallet. Probably somebody else in a different part of the assembly line, opening up the cap box, putting the caps or dumping the caps into probably like a hopper, flattening the box, putting on a pallet. That pallet then gets up to 40 some inches, whatever they're comfortable with. And now it becomes the Leaning Tower of Pizza. So somebody comes around with a forklift or pallet jack, takes that pallet that this person has just filled with flattened boxes, and it's all the same exact box. It's one box, the bottle box times 120, or the cap box times 100 and whatever. Pallet jack comes over, forklift, whatever it is, picks it up, brings it, goes through the factory. Some of these factories are huge, back to the recycling or trash room. And then guess what? Another human now takes them off the pallet and puts them into a baler, 10 at a time. So you got a human that's putting them onto the pallet and a human that's taking them off the pallet, putting them in a baler just so they can be crushed and then picked up by your typical OCC recycler. So what do? We instruct our clients or our suppliers, take that pallet, put it on the forklift or pallet jack, go right past the baler and right onto our truck. Cuts out all of that labor. And that's a big, big selling point. Not just the labor, but the safety. You got a person working 24 hours a day or working 40 hours a week running a baler, dangerous. And if you can reduce that, big, big selling point. So that's what we do. All right, so now we're buying millions and millions of shipping boxes. What are we doing with them? We're not baling them. Again, we believe reuse is better for lots of different reasons, but I want to share with you, where do we sell them? We sell them to retailers, generally to large retailers, to provide a container to move products from their distribution center to their store. So let's just use Walmart as an example. An enormous amount of Walmart's products, I used to quote it exactly, but I'm sure it's changed, maybe gotten higher. An enormous amount of Walmart's products are coming from China. They come over in ocean containers. The ocean containers are then delivered to the distribution centers. Let's say, again, makeup, lipstick. You imagine how many lipsticks are in an ocean container? Walmart has, I don't know how many stores, 10,000 maybe? Not every store wants a container of lipstick. They want 100 or 200 or whatever it is. Walmart sometimes buys brand new boxes to put lipstick in or whatever the product is, send it out to their own store, going from their own DC to their own store. And then what does the store do with it? Bails it. Why does a retail store bail everything? Because a good retailer makes money on every square foot of their retail store. A non-efficient retailer would waste space storing up boxes for somebody like us to come pick up. So they are almost always crushed at the retail store. Sometimes the trucks go back and forth, and when they do, they often go back. But the problem with today, with 3PLs, often the truck that leaves the distribution center, even if it's a Walmart, even if it's a Walmart-owned truck, the truck that leaves the distribution center gets to the store, is probably not turning around empty and going back to the distribution center. It's probably picking up something else in that local area and going somewhere else. That's how logistics works. You never want to have an empty truck on the road. So we sell to a lot of retailers. We also sell to, again, reverse logistics companies. Same principle. If Walmart is liquidating a store, if there's Amazon returning or sending items to a liquidator, same exact thing as Gaylords. Gaylords are way more prevalent in reverse logistics, but when you have smaller products, you have to use smaller boxes. So that's our business model that we've been doing for years and years and years. And I wanted to share our business model. 20 years ago, I didn't share our business model. I kind of quietly did this and built a company. I was just telling Eugene, I spoke at this conference over 10 years ago. And I remember I had like three employees, and we had like myself and like 3 guys in a warehouse sorting boxes. We've got about 150 full-time people now. People always ask me, is there really any money in reuse? I said, well, I hope so, because I got to pay for 150 people every 2 weeks. And so far, so good. Most importantly, though, we use boxes as boxes. We don't look at boxes as OCC until they're reused. Now, they'll still be OCC because they'll be reused once, maybe twice, and then they turn into OCC. Okay, there was a lot of talk this morning about the markets and the money, and I will not at all claim to be an expert, nowhere to the degree of the other people that spoke, but I want to share with you conceptually the amount of money that can be made in this industry. So we're in the Southeast, and I looked at, and I hope I'm not wrong, you guys can correct me, but I looked at the Southeast high from, can't even see, September, October, November, December, and then just this past January. Am I right? Just gone down and down and down, right? Well, that sucks. And every single OCC recycler has had to notify their client, hey, got some bad news. Market rate went down. We're not going to pay you that much. Whether they do notify or they don't notify, they are paying less and less and less on that last couple of months. Not us. The reuse market really doesn't fluctuate anywhere near as much because we are selling it as a box. And we don't have to fluctuate. And we generally are not fluctuating much at 2 to 3 times the rate of OCC. Now, again, boxes are a very, very small part of OCC. So it's not like you can take all your OCC and make 2 to 3 times as much. But you can, and this is why I share with you, you can look at those specific industries and see where there's an enormous amount of box versus other OCC, and it's very easy to separate. I don't like to use the word separate. Don't combine in the first place. You don't have to separate if you don't combine them. There's a very easy opportunity to not combine your Gaylords, not use them as trash cans, and not combine your shipping boxes, not throw them into a baler. And I say 2 to 3 times. I have many, many examples of 5 times where we are paying 5 times recycling rates. And guess what? Our clients love it. And our recycling partners, because they are our clients, also love it. So I will leave you with that. Actually, I have one more thing to leave you with. What are the big opportunities? If you were to leave this room and say, hey, Marty told me I can make more money, I want to make more money. 2 easiest questions I've been asking for decades. Is it high volume? Because if you're not doing this in truckload quantities, the logistics is just too expensive. You know, I can't tell you how many people are, oh, Marty, I got some used moving boxes. You can have them for free. I have even companies saying that you can have a half a truckload. You can have them for free. I don't care. It's not free. Starting a tractor trailer is not free. It's very expensive. So you have to do this in high volumes. And then the other kind of tip to do this is low variety. So let's go back to, we'll go back to a small company that makes lots of products. Okay, sorry, big company, Walmart. If a Walmart store said to me, Marty, you can have all my boxes, you can have them for free, I would say no. I don't want Walmart's store boxes for free because there will be, unless they're buying them from us, there will be millions of different sizes. And you know that memory game, like, you know, I have a 3 here and I thought there was a 3 over there. It's like, wait, I got this box. I think I've seen one before. It is a disaster. We've been through it. So you've got to go for high, low variety. Back again to the Coke example, bottles and caps, bottles and caps, bottles and caps. If a Coca-Cola plant came to us and said, will you take all my boxes? We'd say, yeah, because most of them will be a bottle box or a cap box. And then of course, we'll work with a local recycler for everything else. My goal after doing this for 21 years was to share with you how we do it. We've built our own technology. I bragged about some of the companies we work with. We do enormous box reuse programs, probably the biggest there are. And would love for the rest of the world to be doing the same, and I want to retire. So I'm trying to spread the word, and as you can see, I got very little to hide. Any questions? Yes.
How long did it take for you to smell your dad that your idea was working?
Okay. Question was, how long did it take to tell my dad that my business model was working? I'm going to get emotional because he's 87 years old, and we do pretty high volumes in numbers and revenue and profit. And when I give him an update and I sent him, I mean, we have private equity firms calling us every day. And I sent him our financial reports, and he's the financial guy. He said, wow, I hope this works out. And I said, oh, Dad, it's working out. Trust me, it's working out. But that's just my dad. But a little bit more serious of an answer. The first, I started this company called Boomerang Boxes in 2002. I was the executive vice president of a big consulting firm. I had a master's degree in business. I was, as I said earlier, I was known as an expert in SAP. Making a lot of money. I'm going to sound pretentious, but I'm telling you just as a visual, I was driving a brand new black BMW. My wife was driving a brand new Land Rover. We were living the dream. And then I started that business, Boomerang Boxes. 3 years later, we were sitting down with bankruptcy attorneys. I had lost everything. I had gotten myself into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and I had a mental breakdown. So it was bad. So 3 years, the answer is no. Year 4, I got the opportunity to raise capital and literally close down Boomerang Boxes and start Used Cardboard Boxes Incorporated. I worked for 4 years with no salary. That was the deal I did with the VC firm. Be careful out there. I worked for 4 years, no salary. All I was able to do was pay the debt that I had absorbed. Then probably 5 more years, we started getting a little bit better and a little bit better. So I would say 10, 12 years into it, I started to say, okay, this is working out. When we got up to 75 employees or so, we said, we really got to get some management in here. And then when we started hiring managers and building, if anybody knows about our company, we took used cardboard boxes and then we created UCB pallet solutions. Same technology used for pallets. You can do real-time freight on our website where you can just pick a load and pick a location and you get a real-time freight rate, which is somewhat unheard of in our industry. And then our clients started asking us, well, hey, all my vendors charge me a fortune. You're the only vendor that's paying me hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are for the big bottle and cap companies. And they asked, could we run the rest of their waste program? So we created UCB Zero Waste as a management company. And that company has grown even faster than Used Cardboard Boxes. So we put that all under the umbrella of UCB Environmental. And yeah, last couple of years have been fantastic, but the first 15 were pretty freaking hard. Yeah. Oops. I'm here and I have the prizes for the volunteers and anybody else who wants one.
Okay, we're at 10 o'clock. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you again to all of our speakers. One more round of applause for everybody.
Yes, sir. I was gonna say, where are you in Maryland?
Silver Spring.
No way.
Yeah.
I went to Paint Ranch.
Okay, and my kids went to Blair.
No way.
Right inside the home.
How long have you been there?